Just wanted to talk, that's all.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back. Welcome back. The off-season, the hot stove beginning to heat up. And I thank all of you for joining me. It is award week in Major League Baseball, so there's not typically a lot of moves around this time, but they do happen. We saw that Caleb Durbin was part of the finalists of the National League MVP, so, part of the Yankees system. Obviously had success this year after the trade to the Brewers. He did not win. But on Thursday, we will get the answer to whether or not Aaron Judge is the American League MVP. And today, I am pretty psyched about it because I went through some stats that I got sent over from Foul Territory, and we'll go through all of that. We're going to do a live show on Thursday during the announcement, and we'll react live. And I'll break down all the numbers, and hopefully we come out feeling good about Aaron Judge being the MVP. But the first thing we're going to talk about today is Trent Grisham and whether or not the $22 million qualifying offer will spell the end for some of the Yankees prospects that we have known for the last few years and grown to love. We're also going to talk about Ketel Marte, who appears to finally be on the trading block. He's somebody that Yankees fans have wanted for years and years. He's, not necessarily out of his prime, but he's in his 30s now, so he's at that age where you might expect him to partially begin to decline. I guess we'll see. But he's definitely on the block. And then also, we're going to talk about some other prospects that I'm watching. Who's going to be that next Cam Schlittler who comes from out of nowhere and puts up big numbers this year and makes an impact at the major league level? Because there are some guys out there that we can talk about. And then lastly, I want to talk about a Japanese pitcher whose name I'm just going to butcher all night. Tatsuya Imai, I believe is how you say it. And I watched some highlights of this guy. Apparently the Yankees are really, really interested in this young man. And he has got some good stuff. He sits 95 to 99 miles an hour. So we're going to break him down, do a little scouting report, and see how he could fit into a potential Yankees rotation, which is pretty strong but does have some injuries. So if you're here, please please subscribe. We're doing 2 episodes per week for the rest of the offseason, and I'm sure that there will be weeks during this winter where we do 5-6 shows because of all the stuff that's going to be happening with the winter meetings and so forth. So go ahead and get in the comments. Let me know how you feel about all of these different topics. And we're going to begin tonight with a little bit of a talk about Mr. Trent Grisham. Now, I watched Michael Kay's rant about Trent Grisham the other day, about how when the Yankees offered Grisham the $22 million qualifying offer, Michael Kay said that it makes very little sense because if he accepts the offer, which Michael Kay seems to think he might, it may lock you out from re-signing Cody Bellinger or force you to trade one of your top 2 outfield prospects. Now, I think you can still get Bellinger. I think you can still get Tucker. You would definitely have to trade one of the outfield prospects, though. So I think it's worth having a conversation about what the right move is here. I also think it's quite possible that Grisham is going to decline the qualifying offer because I think he can do better than $22 million as a total overall package. I think his agent will say, hey, look, you might not get $22 million per year like you're going to get with the Yankees this year, but if you get hurt, if you have a bad year, you might not get a great contract, especially with a potential lockout looming in 2027. What I'm imagining he might do is take a 3-year deal at about 15 or 16 million, right? So you're talking 45 to 48 million. $20+ million more than he would get on the open market. But I want to share his StatCast numbers because obviously the Yankees feel like he's the real deal and that these metrics are good if they're willing to go $22 million on him next year and risk this potential move. You see, he's obviously built for Yankee Stadium, ton of power to right field. The batting run value in the 88th percentile, the xWOBA in the 90th percentile. I mean, the metrics are great. He was barreling the ball up really well. He was pretty good at avoiding the strikeouts, the whiffs percentage, and he had pretty good command of the strike zone. Now, I know there's going to be people chiming in, well, he stunk in the playoffs. And to those people, I say, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. He was awful in the playoffs. But he did have some really big moments during the season, and that's crucial to get to the playoffs. A power-hitting, left-handed outfielder. And yes, Michael Kay was all over his defense because if you look at the fielding run value, it was in the 29th percentile. But he was hurt. He was playing with a pulled hamstring all year. I like guys who play a little bit hurt, and can still be productive. It tells me they're tough. He seems like a good guy. If he accepts the qualifying offer, I would not have a huge problem with it. But what I would have an issue with is what they would have to do next, which is they would have to trade one of their two top prospects. Now, Jason Dominguez, as you guys know, I've been a huge fan of his for a long time. 22 years old, 257 average, so you'd like a little bit of a higher BA. 10 home runs, again, you'd like more power. 101 OPS plus, so league average essentially. 100 is league average, so he was 1% above league average. 719 OPS. He struggled as a right-handed hitter. I saw some footage of him today in the cage down there in the Dominican Winter League. He is working on that right-handed swing, and he was swinging with no legs whatsoever. He was essentially trying to rebuild his swing from the ground up, working on the bat path. That sounds like somebody who's very interested in getting better. But his defense, let's just be honest. Let's call a spade a spade. His defense was bad. He showed some signs. He made some good plays. I can think of a handful of good plays he made this year, but I can think of more than a handful of plays that he screwed up, right? He does have a good arm. He sometimes throws to the wrong bases or, isn't exactly, with his head in the game out there. But you can't deny the speed. So he can run down balls. If he looks, if he works on routes, he could at least improve defensively. Now, Spencer Jones, now you guys know, I'm kind of over this strikeout or home run thing, right? I mean, I get that the team that hit the most home runs won the World Series. I understand that. Spencer Jones obviously has power. In AA and AAA this year combined, 35 home runs, 274 average, 932 OPS, which I on there twice for emphasis, 362 on base percentage, and great defense. And this is a guy who has a ton of speed. He had 179 strikeouts, though, in 506 plate appearances. That's way too many. And you got to think that would go up in the major leagues. So you're looking at 200-plus strikeouts. And I'm sorry, I just don't want that many strikeouts in the lineup. I want to go in the opposite direction. Now, I know Jason is, he's a guy who strikes out also, right? He's a guy who is susceptible to the strikeout, especially against left-handed pitchers, but I don't think it's on the level that Spencer Jones is at. So if I had to trade one of these guys, I would probably lean towards trading Spencer Jones. You got to look at him as more of a lottery ticket, more of a, Joey Gallo potential player. Big-time power, great defense, but going to whiff an absolutely astronomical amount. So that's where we're at. Let me know in the comments how you feel about this situation. Was it a mistake for the Yankees to offer Trent Grisham the qualifying offer? And if he accepts, which of those two players are you looking to move in a deal? All right, let's move on to Ketel Marte, because he is apparently on the trade block. And now this is somebody that Yankees fans have been interested in for a long time. He's a switch hitter. He's got pop. He hits for average. I'm going to pull up his StatCast numbers again. You see metrics that are outstanding. xWOBA in the 97th percentile. Batting run value in the 95th percentile. Fielding run value, about league average. A little bit below. Base running value, not as good. He's not as great a base runner. But this is a switch hitter with power to all fields. He's a career 281 hitter, so he makes contact. He was an NLCS MVP back in 2023. And there's very little in his metrics that suggest he's going to get any worse anytime soon. I mean, age wears down everybody. But even if he drops off a little bit, he's still going to be a good player. And, 28 home runs, 36 the year before that. He brings the power with the batting average combination. 376 on base percentage. I'll tell you what, I could see him as the perfect leadoff hitter. Now, here's the problem. Here is the problem. He plays second base. Yankees have a second baseman. His name is Jazz Chisholm. So, if you make this deal, I suggest that Jazz Chisholm goes back to third, where I thought he was fine as a third baseman. I didn't think he was bad. His arm honestly plays better at third base because he's got such a strong cannon over there. Whereas at second base, you were seeing him throw balls in the camera well all the time. I'm sure he threw a few away at third base as well. But look, this is a guy who I think would be comfortable at either second or third. And Marte could also play third. McMahon, I get that people love his defense. To me, he's not an everyday hitter. I watched him for 2 months. Big holes in his swing. Big holes. I don't know if I could trust him. So I think if Ketel Marte is on the block, and it sounds like he's a little bit of a diva, but we had that same impression of Jazz when he got traded. He was a diva, and he's ended up fitting in nicely. Marte, 32 years old. Last year, he had a 4.4 WAR. I don't know what's up with my stats here. I must have missed some stuff here. I got to fix that. This is a guy 4.4 WAR. 283 average, 28 home runs, 72 RBIs. So I'm interested in him. I'm very interested in him. If the Yankees can somehow make this move, I think you got to consider it. Brian Bashman says, what about Brendan Jones? Oh, come on, Brian. Brendan Jones is not good. I'm going to pull up Brendan Jones' stats because there's prospect hugging and then there's prospect just like denial. This is a guy who played in single A and double A last year, and combined, he hit 245 with a 359 on base percentage. Yeah, he had some walks, 82 walks, about 109 strikeouts. He had 11 home runs. I don't see a major league player there. And how old is he? I don't see his age listed. But I'm just not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. Sorry, man. However, I will talk about someone that Brian Bashman does like. We're going to talk about sleeper prospects here. And one of the guys that he wants to talk about, he mentions, he badgers me to talk about him, is Harrison Cohen. So I've been watching some highlights, and he's on my list. But I'm thinking about, like, who could be the next Cam Schlittler? Who could be the guy that comes out of nowhere, from the minor leagues this year and makes a big impact? You're not going to get that guy every year, but there are some candidates because I think the Yankees have a stronger system than people give them credit for. They really do. And so Elmer Rodriguez Cruz is my number one guy to watch. 150 innings, 178 strikeouts. You got him from the Boston Red Sox in that trade for Carlos Narvaez. Now, if the Yankees are making a deal with the Red Sox, they're absolutely sure of who they're getting back. And everything I've heard about this guy is he is the absolute real deal. He could step in at some point if you have an injury and make a big impact. Now, Harrison Cohen, you can call him a relief pitching prospect. He was a reliever in the minors, but I was talking to AJ Przinsky and Eric Kratz one time back when I was working for Foul Territory behind the scenes, and I talked to AJ and I mentioned the Yankees had a relief pitching prospect, and he and Kratz both objected to that. I said, there's no such thing as a relief pitching prospect. There's only failed starting pitcher prospects that become relievers. And if you look at Harrison Cohen, he was a starter. He has switched to relief pitching. 59 strikeouts in 51 innings, 1.76 ERA. Those numbers are tough to ignore. So if the Yankees are looking for a relief arm, and there's an open competition in the bullpen in spring training, as I think there usually is at least one or two spots, even if they fill up the roster headed into spring training, there's always an injury or two. So Harrison Cohen could be somebody to watch out for. So watch out for him. And then Henry Lalane. This is a guy I've had on my radar for a while. Now, he's 6'7". He's lanky. I compared him to kind of like a Randy Johnson type. He's got that really long arm that's like 3/4. He's got a nasty slider. He sits in the mid to upper 90s. He is legit. His control is not there yet because he's got a ton of moving parts. His mechanics are not where you need them to be yet. And he had some injuries last year. But again, more strikeouts than innings pitched, low ERA. He's effective when he's in there. He's one of those guys that they were saying last year could shoot up the system, but he had some injury problems. This year, if he stays healthy, watch out. watch out, you know? And this is not uncommon for guys, especially pitchers, to shoot up the minor leagues quickly. Look what Trey Yasevich did with the Blue Jays. He pitched at Single A and he pitched in the World Series. So it can be done. It can absolutely be done. And then Caden Kent. And I am a fan of, let's just say, nepotism. When guys come from that major league lineage, a la George Lombard Jr., Bo Bichette, there's so many of these guys. I believe in it. I think that you get access to more training. You get access to more inside tips, better facilities, better equipment growing up. And his dad, Jeff Kent, was one of the better players I've ever seen. I watched a lot of those Giants games when Barry Bonds was going through his thing. That was back when I was younger. I was in my 20s, so the Yankee game would end at 10 o'clock, 10:30, and the Giants game would just be starting, and I was following along the home run chase. And so I would watch a lot of those Giants games. And Jeff Kent was amazing. And if his son is a fraction of the player he was, he's going to be incredible. So watch out for these two guys, Caden Kent, Harrison Cohen, and then Elmer Rodriguez Cruz as a starter, Henry Rolane as a kind of wild card if he stays healthy, and we'll see how that shakes out. All right, last thing I want to talk about. There's been some talk today that the Yankees are trying to get into the Japanese market once again because they really haven't since the Masahiro Tanaka deal. And the guy that they have their eye on is Tatsuya Imai. Now, this is a guy who has incredible stuff. The one thing that worries me is his size. He's 5'11", 154 pounds, so he's a little guy. But 95 to 99 mile an hour fastball. He apparently has a plus slider. So a elite slider was an effective pitch, a changeup, and a splitter. Splitter we know is an effective pitch in the major leagues. Now the last 3 years, back in 2025, this year, 10-5, 1.92 ERA, 163 innings, 178 strikeouts, and 45 walks. And you see the walk totals dropping each year, which means he's becoming a better pitcher. Also the ERA dropping each year. The year before last, he had a 2.34 ERA. Year before that, 2.45. He's not throwing an unbelievable amount of innings. 158 in 23, 173 in 24, 163 in 2025. But you look at the Yankees rotation as it stands right now. They have some guys that are a lock. Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, Garrett Cole. But Garrett Cole might not be back until May. Clark Schmidt might not be back until August or September. Chase Hampton was a top prospect. Will he be back at some point this year? We'll see. Luis Gil, will he be the Luis Gil that he was before the injury? Because he wasn't the same guy last year. Will Warren, 9-8 with a 4.44 ERA. Honestly, I'd be completely fine with trading Will Warren to make room for somebody like Imai. And I think if the Yankees do get Imai, then they're going to have to move one of these young pitchers. Whether it's Will Warren, whether it's Luis Gil, I could see him moving either one of those guys. And perhaps it's in a deal for somebody like Ketel Marte. So let me know in the comments how you're feeling about these moves that the Yankees could potentially make. Quick word from the guys at Foul Territory, and then I'll be back to wrap it up.
This episode of FT is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. Give me an example in Pennsylvania, Kratz.
Right down the street from my house, the Tap House. Not only is it an awesome place to hang out, get your beers, get your drinks, whatever it is, but you know what? The company has the simplicity of Square, and they give back to the community with 10% of all the proceeds that they bring in going back to community projects.
I love it. Sports and sports bars are so good at bringing together local communities, and you can actually take this ad as an excuse to go support your local spot and have yourself a day or a weekend in the neighborhood. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. These businesses are what make the neighborhood the neighborhood. So visit square.com/go/foul to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. Again, that's square.com/go/foul to learn more.
All right. So, I still got Frankie on here. Let me remove Frankie. I was rushed to put this together today. I had some I had some flu-like symptoms today that I'm trying to. I took some medicine, but I'm getting there. So anyway, that's where we're at right now. I also want to talk a little bit more about Don Mattingly. We had some comments that you guys should bring back Don Mattingly, fire Aaron Boone. That is not going to happen. I could see a potential situation where Don Mattingly comes back to the Yankees eventually, but he is not going to be the bench coach. He is not going to be the first base coach. The Yankees hired a first base coach today. But I could see him being a instructor. If he wants to take the year off, I could see him coming down to, the minor leagues facilities in Tampa and, helping to work with with Ben Rice and trying to straighten him out at first base. Greg Bird, man, I wish he had panned out. There's some prospects that you're just sure are going to be awesome, and then they don't work out. And for me, Greg Bird was one of those guys. So, anyway, Ruben Paulino says, would our Yankees trade for Garrett Crochet from Boston? Oh, my God. You think Boston would trade Garrett Crochet to the Yankees? They just signed him to a big contract. That's like an all-time bad comment. Brian says, please tell Kratz that Houston Street was a closer in college and the minors before he was a closer in the majors. Yeah, there are exceptions to every rule. But hey. Terrence P. says, would you trade for Ketel Marte? Depends on what they're asking. If you get him for a decent deal, I would absolutely make that deal and move Jazz Chisholm back over to third base. I think that makes a lot of sense. Edwin NG says Mattingly as special advisor. I could see that. I wish he was in the dugout. I wish he was absolutely in the dugout, but, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. Post your comments in the chat, and we'll take a few more comments as we wrap things up. Let's see here. Jack Wells says, how old is the Japanese player? Japanese pitcher is 27 years old. He's going to be pitching at 28 years old next year. So he is definitely in his prime. Jace Sports says, would you fire Boone? I've already fired Boone 100 times over the last couple of years, but they're going to let him ride out his contract. I don't see any chance that they're going to fire him. If they would have done it, they would have done it by now. Chase says, what is your all-time favorite Yankees signing? That's a good question. If you're going just by, impact on the team, man, that's tough. Hideki Matsui was great. Won a World Series MVP. He had several really good years. A-Rod was a trade, so you can't really include that. He won 2 MVPs, though. I really enjoyed watching Giambi play. I really enjoyed that. David Cone, they traded for him, but then they re-signed him that winter. That was big. It's tough to say. If I were leaning towards anybody right now, I'd probably say Hideki Matsui. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me. I'll be back on Thursday. We'll cover the MVP voting, and hopefully the Yankees will get an MVP once again in Aaron Judge, who is looking for his third. And we'll see if he can top out Cal Raleigh. I'll see you then. If you enjoyed this content, please hit that like button and subscribe. Check out NYYDesigns.shop for some great merch. Support our sponsors. It helps keep the show going. And you can find us on all major audio platforms, so be sure to subscribe there too. But most importantly, come back again soon. We'll see you next time.